So here we have an example of a very troublesome eclipse, which is happening with the Sun in early Eris, the Moon in early Libra. This ephemeris is showing hour by hour Eastern Daylight Time. So the peak eclipse point is around 3 o'clock in the morning Eastern Time Zone on Monday. But eclipses tend to work so that leading up to it and past the eclipse point is how the eclipse works. And in this case, pretty clearly explains the crises that he's experiencing in regard to his finances, because the eclipse cutting across his Neptune Eris immediately implicates Neptune in the 8th sign through co-rulership, and therefore connections to other people's money in general. Money in a chart is found in the 2nd, 5th, 8th, and 11th. And so Neptune indirectly, but perhaps more importantly, once you implicate Neptune Eris, you also draw in the axis Hollywood T-square, because Mercury is also connected. You're getting a square. And Mercury is the ruler of the 11th, money from career, money from reputation, and the 2nd, personal money. So that starts to increase the connection to the same theme. And here, of course, we have the immediacy, the hour of the eclipse. When we look at the days before and the days after, the theme is reinforced further, because the eclipse happens in early Aries Libra. The moon immediately moves forward. So if you go back here to show the hours, at 5 degrees it's triggering his Neptune Eris, but then in the hours that follow into 1 p.m. of that day, it goes through such that it'll square the Mercury, and that's the discomfort of that. But more problematic is the fact that the Sun energy, being at 5 degrees Aries at the eclipse point, moves forward to square that Mercury into the end of the month, basically. So that extends the pressure of the eclipse and the fact that the Sun as a point is transiting in square. And then you see that simultaneously Mercury, already at the eclipse point squaring Saturn, moves forward to square Venus, at least into March 29th. You can pretty much count it till the end of the month. Meanwhile, Venus is in Pisces and makes its way to square Uranus. In fact, at the eclipse point, it's pretty much square Uranus. Then it goes to a square to the moon and to the sun, again taking it into the end of the month. And Mars, right at the eclipse point, has switched into Pisces. Now, it's not doing anything too intense yet in the early degrees of Pisces, although the proximity to the angle definitely correlates with discomfort. But this Mars in Pisces is a zone that is not helpful to him at all, because as it moves further into the sign, it's going to square his Sun and Moon and his Uranus as well. So you can draw this line all the way down into May, as Mars will do what it'll do, basically irritate him constantly during this whole period. So bottom line, this eclipse period is very, very tricky. I am not here addressing the Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto energy. I'll be doing that through all kinds of videos that you will see in the near future, but trust me when I tell you that none of that is good at all in terms of those outer planets. So this eclipse is happening at a point when the big energy through the planets from Jupiter outward to Eris is challenging, and then you see the faster moving planets correlating with the difficult eclipse energy. You may have heard that he now will be having access to potential large sum of money through his Truth Social going public, etc. However, I would encourage you to read an article that was published in Politico this morning. The link to that article is in the description of this video, in which it is explained that that development, that access to that, or that potential access to that cash, is not going to help him get out of this jam, because he's not going to have access to that money for months. Therefore, he's dealing with this problem as it is as we go into Monday. And perhaps the bond companies, upon seeing that he will be getting access to money at some point, will be willing to front him the money. But when I see this astrological situation, I have to say that, I would have to say that if I were him, I would be quite worried, which he probably already is. because of the astrology. There's no question that that's the case. This is a very, very uncomfortable period for the Orange Menace. But, as Reverend Sharpton said yesterday, he's in a tough spot. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy.